Did you know that over 70 billion land animals are slaughtered each year for food? But this only accounts for land animals. Around 120 billion farm fish are killed each year on top of the 1 trillion wild fish caught worldwide. Overall, there are around 1 trillion and 250 billion animals killed each year for food consumption. Also, remember that there are only 7 billion people in the world, so this percentage of animals killed is astronomical. People who eat animal products should eliminate their consumption of them because they damage our health, the environment, and the animals, but also the standard practices performed are extremely cruel and inhumane. But I will present some ways in this speech that will make it easier to transition to a plant-based lifestyle. Alright, damages to our health, the environment, and the animals from animal agriculture. Our health. Did you know that humans cannot properly digest LDL cholesterol? LDL cholesterol, or the bad cholesterol, is only found in animal products. This is because the animals we eat, just like us, are cholesterol-producing living organisms. Cholesterol is bad for your health because it can clog your arteries and veins that lead to your heart and even in your heart. Also, the highest percentage of ingested saturated fats come from animal products like meat and whole dairy products. Saturated fats are like bad cholesterol, but not as detrimental as cholesterol. They aren't good for you, nor do they provide you with any nutritional value. They are instead unhealthy fillers that can clog your arteries. But foods with the highest amount of unsaturated fats are avocados, almonds, pecans, hazelnuts, pumpkin seeds, and sesame seeds. Unsaturated fats are the good fats that can help reduce inflammation and even reduce your blood cholesterol level. Alright, on to the environment. Did you know that over 15% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from the animal agriculture industry? This percentage is higher than all modes of transportation combined, including cars, trucks, trains, boats, etc. That's crazy. I never knew that until I went vegan. Okay, on to animals' health. Now, on to the more important portion of the speech to me, which is the animal's health as a whole. Did you know that most animals don't even end up making it to the slaughterhouse? Most end up either dying on the day of birth or dying during the process of fattening. The fattening period of a farm animal's life is the time they are born to the time they are slaughtered. And in between that time, the farmer tries to get them as big as they can, as fast as they can. But animals could die during this period from a number of things such as disease, fatigue, stress, death from the other animals, and malnutrition. Now let's focus on some of the cruelty aspects of animal agriculture, which will include pigs, cows, and chickens. I decided to only include pigs, cows, and chickens because these are the highest farmed animals worldwide. So, on to pigs. The removal of teeth, testicles, and tails on pigs. This fact is one I've never heard of my entire life up until I went vegan. But I now know that they removed the teeth, the testicles, and the tails of piglets a few days after birth with no sedatives and no numbing. With the tooth removal, they use a basic pair of needle-nose pliers and rip out the pig's molars. While conscious, they do this to prevent the pig from gnawing on the metal bars that make up their cages. While pigs are in confinement, they are restricted to an area the size of a refrigerator. This may seem huge, but when you're a 450-pound pig, this area is just about the size of your body. Just enough to fit. No turning around, no socializing. Pigs will often gnaw on these bars due to high stress levels from being locked in small cages all day. Now on to the removal of testicles on piglets. Now this one may make you a little uncomfortable, but I can guarantee that this is the 100% truth. Once the farmers have separated the male piglets from the ones they want to breed and the ones they want to raise for meat, now it is time to remove the testicles on the non-breeding males. They start by making an incision down the middle of the scrotum, then they proceed to remove the testicles. Remember that there are no sedatives applied. Those are an added expense that the farmers would evidently have to pay for, so this is an extremely painful process. The removal of the tails is the same as the removal of the teeth and the testicles. No sedatives. They basically just take a pair of scissors and snip it off. This is because in confinement, pigs like to nip and bite at each other's tails. Cutting them off before it happens will help with aggression, but the tail is still being removed without sedatives, so it's basically the same amount of pain. Now on to standard practices with cows. With cows, things are a little different. They're a lot bigger animals, so they cannot be as easily moved. So they have different practices that they perform. For example, the reason why you most likely never see any cows in confinement with horns is because they burn them off. This prevents them from growing and stabbing any other cows, farmers, or even themselves while in confinement. but this process is extremely painful. So when a cow reaches 2 to 3 months, it will start naturally growing nubs, which will eventually turn into horns. At this stage, the farmers will pin them down, use a tool much like a big cauterizer that doctors would use in surgeries to stop bleeding, and put it on the horn. They will proceed to push it and shove it down into the cow's skull until it is flush with the skull, but you have to remember that horns have nerve endings in them. This would basically be like me walking up to someone and shoving a cigarette in their arm and holding it there for 15 to 20 seconds. Now on to the dairy industry. Did you know that the dairy industry is arguably worse than the meat industry? Now this claim may seem like nonsense to you, but I can assure you I have proof to back it up. So in the meat industry, the male cows are born, fattened, and slaughtered. That's it. But in the dairy industry, it's a little bit different. When a female calf is born, it is taken away from its mother, normally within 12 to 24 hours, and this is because the calf will drink the milk from the mother. Obviously, this is the dairy industry, so we know that we eventually get the milk from the cows, so we can't have any pesky calves around here stealing our milk, right? So, we take them away. After this, they are taken to solitary confinement pens like this on the slide. Once in these pens, they are raised to around 1 year old or so before they can get impregnated for the first time. Just so you know, the impregnation process is not leaving a male cow and a female cow in the same stall overnight to see what happens. It is artificially done by humans. We extract the bull semen from the male and inject it into the female with a long rod. Once this happens, 9 months later, she has a baby. Once that calf is born, just like when she was born, it is ripped away from her. This cycle happens over and over, either until milk production declines, or she cannot get pregnant anymore. This then begs the question, what do we do with her now? I mean, she can't produce milk and she can't have babies, so the only logical reason is to send her to the slaughterhouse. Her exhausted body and meat is mostly sold as either cheap ground beef or dog food. So please do not think that just because you only eat dairy that you're doing enough. Granted, it is still great and you are trying, and I do not want to harp on anyone here, but you're still contributing to that horrible industry. So now let's look at chickens. Chickens, just like every other farmed animal, are subjected to abuse, but there are no laws protecting chickens. At least with cows, pigs, and other four-legged animals, they have some protection, but all poultry birds have zero laws protecting them from abuse, including turkeys, chickens, and geese. So this means that farmers can legally kick them, throw them, and even punch them to make them comply. Let's talk about meat chickens for a second. So raising meat chickens on a factory farm is a bit different from raising egg-laying chickens, but not extremely different. Since it is not legal to have meat chickens in cages anymore, they are forced into dark, windowless sheds like this one on the slide in the top right by tens of thousands. Meat chickens nowadays are also bred to grow 4 times as fast compared to 1957 and 1978, as shown on the slide. This rapid increase in growth often leads to paralyzation due to the inability of the chicken's legs to support its own body weight. It also leads to heart problems and mostly heart attacks and death. This rapid increase is extremely unnatural, which is why these chickens often end up dead even before arrival at the slaughterhouse. Now on to egg-laying hens. Now this is a bit different from meat-laying chickens because most egg-laying hens are locked in cages like these in the middle. In these cages, the floors and ceilings are all mesh. This leads to their feet becoming mangled and even unable to get up. It also means that the feces and urine from the chickens above fall down on the chickens below. This leads to diseases such as E. coli and often causes death. Now on to probably the saddest part of the egg industry, which is male chick removal. This process is done due to the male chicks being too small to produce meat, but also not able to produce eggs. So this then leads to the most common form of removal, which is to put them on a conveyor belt, which essentially leads to a big blender or a macerator, shown on the right side of the slide. This picture here does not show any blood, no cut off heads, but instead just a chick right before it was forced into the macerator. This picture hit me extremely hard, knowing that that chick was only a day or so old, possibly just hatched, and it was murdered. Alright, now we're going to talk about some ways you can get involved and even help stop this from happening every day. I will also present some ways that might help you switch to a plant-based diet too. Alright, switching to a plant-based diet. Switching to a plant-based diet can be extremely easy if you have a driving force behind it like myself. So, like myself, if it weren't for the animals, I would not be doing this. I've never openly said this before, but it's completely true. The animals are the 100% inspiring factor behind my veganism. But switching doesn't have to be the complete removal of foods, but instead the implementation of new foods. New healthier foods, too. For example, organizations / companies such as Beyond Meat, Impossible Foods, Just Egg, Silk, Non-Dairy Milks, and many others companies are driving for a healthier version of these foods, but not giving up that same taste. Okay, how to get involved. There are many ways to get involved. One popular method nowadays with media is photography. Photography is one of the most powerful methods of media, and this form of media is actually what drove me to become plant-based. Just think about it. We would have no idea what's going on behind the walls of slaughterhouses if it weren't for those activists going in there and recording it. Sometimes something as simple as taking a picture of an animal on a transport truck could be just enough to encourage someone to switch like me. Another way you can get involved is to spread awareness about the problem. Not a lot of people really know what happens behind the scenes for their food to appear on a plate. If people were educated on this, then they might want to switch more. It is really easy to just see a piece of meat on a plate and not think anything of it. Trust me, I know this. I did this for my entire life up until last year. But if you actually know the animal and the person behind that piece of meat, you'd really think about it more in depth. I would like to extremely thank each and every one of you for listening to my speech today. I don't normally open up about this topic, but it is extremely important to me. I practice it every day and I see it every day. It is a part of my life now and I could not be any happier. I would like to offer you the 22 plant-based diet challenge right here at challenge22.com. And here's another website to help you get started. It is called trypurplecarrot.com. It has a lot of diets and websites. Thank you so much for listening.